Today, we saw AMD closing up more than 20% on the session. At a time, we see the S&P logs the fourth straight record close, the longest win streak going back into May. Now, the main question of the day is this nothing more than a major trap that is about to be set? Now, we come over and look at how the indices fared across the board today. The Dow was down 63 points. The NASDAQ was up 161 points. S&P 500 up 24 points, with the Russell 2000 being up 0.98. Now, that looks bullish on the surface, but when we come over and look at advancing issues versus declining, we only had 51.2% of issues advancing on the day. Then when we come over and look at the sectors across the board, really no surprise out there that technology was the leader out there. When we come over and look at XLK has just been on a grind up and away. MACD indicator on the daily chart still looks extremely strong. Now, everything really kicked off today when we saw it actually in pre-market, I think was up like 36, 38%, something like that in pre-market. And the reason AMD was up so much, AMD stock soars towards its best day in 9 years. Here's why OpenAI wants a stake in AMD. AMD got a big endorsement in the form of a multi-year chip deal with OpenAI, which was also issued a warrant to purchase up to 160 million AMD shares at a very, very reduced price. And when all that kicked off today, we saw AMD just off to the races. But something I want you guys to focus on before you get too excited about wanting to buy into all the hype, like this morning we saw that gap up. One, yes, we have a major gap, but even if we don't come all the way down and fill this potential gap in AMD, one of the areas that you want to focus on is going to be this prior breakout point right up here, right about 186.73. At some point, AMD will come back there. And is this the beginning of that descent down towards that level? Then we come over and look at Tesla today. Tesla also had a very strong day, up 5.45%. Now, the news on Tesla is unveiling a cheaper Model Y soon. And again, it's rumored that that announcement could come out as early as tomorrow. But like with all good traps, is this the potential where we're getting of excitement coming out, and then once the news actually comes in, we find out it was nothing more than a buy the rumor, sell the news event? Now, it wasn't just Tesla and AMD on the move up today. If we come over and we take a look at the precious metal gold today also notched out another new all-time high. If we look at the high today in gold, it made a high of $3,994.50. Now, that 4,000 price target is right around the corner. We've been talking about the MACD indicator. It's been looking strong. We saw a little bit of weakness right here, but we have never got a bearish cross of the MACD indicator in quite some time. However, we come over and look at the dollar index today. Dollar index did not close the most bullish, but notice at one point today, the buyers did step in, pushing the dollar index up. However, when the dollar was also going up, the stocks were not falling off a cliff. Also, we want to keep an eye on the 10-year yield. Notice stocks went up today, but notice the 10-year yield was still able to rise. Now, this is going to pose a problem for the market if the 10-year yield continues to rocket up. We have this resistance line right up here, about 4.187%. We start getting above that and start building momentum. That's when a problem is going to come in out here for the stock market. Now, today, the stock market really struggled in the fact that we had no major economic news on deck today. And then we look over here on Tuesday, the only thing we really have is a couple FOMC members speaking. So from a news perspective, we had very little economic news. Now, the fear and greed index is right back over in the greed with a reading of 57. The bulls are like, come on. Let's keep this party going. But what we got to watch out for is what happens once the music stops. For instance, look at the Dow Jones today. Dow Jones broke the low on Friday, but then look, now we have a shooting star candle on Friday, and then today we get what could be kind of a hangman type of candle. We still need to see a little bit more data, aka more days, to see can we come down and start closing below today's low. If so, that would confirm this two-bar pattern where we can see the market starting to head back a little lower from this price point. But then we come over and look at the volatility index. This morning on the live stream, we saw the VIX actually gapped up, and then we saw the VIX slowly start to grind a little bit lower, where the VIX was actually closing down 28 cents on this session. Now, when we come over and look at the SPY real quick, let's start off looking at this on the daily chart. Now, on Friday, we had a shooting star-ish type of candle, and for all intents and purposes today, the sellers pushed the market down, but then their buyers came right back in, pushing it right back up. But the high was lower than the high from Friday, and the low was higher than the low from Friday. So what this sets up is we have an inside day. Now, after an inside day, we expect the market to either break out or break down from this pattern. So let me know in the comment section down below, do you think we're going to break out or break down? Now, something I want to warn you guys about with the inside day pattern, whichever way we first break, quite often ends up being nothing more than a trap. So if we see it early in tomorrow morning, we're breaking above the high, we need to watch out for a potential trap being set and having the market come right back down towards some of these Fibonacci levels that we've been watching. On the 4-hour chart, we can see not a whole lot to see here. On the 4-hour chart, not a lot to see. MACD indicator still has a bullish cross. But then as we come over and look at the 30-minute chart real quick, we can see that inside day a little bit easier. Now, a majority of the distribution was built out in the upper end of the range. So tomorrow, if we really start trading below value area low at about 670.91, that's going to open the door for a retest of today's low and possibly Friday's low, and then potentially working our way down towards some of these open gaps that we have much lower. Now, the MACD indicator is crossed to the downside. We have a bearish cross of the MACD indicator, and notice the divergence that we have. If you notice from today's high, it was not that much lower than all-time highs and the high from Friday, but notice the MACD indicator. The high on the MACD indicator is much, much lower, which is a warning sign out here. I want to remind you guys right now, Take Profit Traders having a 40% sale off all their valuation accounts, 0 activation fee. Take advantage of this offer. Use code Epitome at checkout. Now, as we come over and look at the futures markets real quick, look at the 4-hour chart with the weekly volume profiles. Now we're able to get back above value area high from last week. In the event we start trading back down below that price point, I want to look and see, can the market come down and at minimum test the point of control at 67.65 and a quarter. Today, we made an attempt, but we were unable to make it all the way down towards that price point. If we get back below value area high again, this is going to be a high probability target I will want to focus on. Below that, I want to focus on this large wick that we had from last week, 67.41, and then all the way down here towards value area low. Now, when we come over and look at the daily profiles real quick, we were able to take out the P point, but we're closing right near the point of control at 67.89 and a half. Now, what I want to watch out for tonight is that potential trap that we talked about when we get an inside day. Do we potentially start breaking above value area high tonight and then potentially coming back down? If so, then I want to look for the market to retest the point of control, value area low, kind of the candle bodies. And then below that, keep in mind, last night, the futures markets gapped up and the S&P today never made it all the way down there, filling the gap. And I want to warn you guys something about this gap. If the gap is not filled by Thursday, quite often it will be several weeks before we come back to revisit that gap in the market. Now, when we come over and look at the QQQs, well, can anybody say new all-time high? And notice as we look at the candle structure, it's really nothing more than a spinning top type of candle. We have a wick on the top and a much larger wick on the bottom with a small body candle. MACD indicator is still crossed to the upside, but notice as we push the new all-time highs, the MACD indicator is not making new all-time highs. However, at some point we will get a retracement down towards the 38% retracement, but before we get down to there, we do have a potential target location, 598.28. And if the market is going to start to retrace lower, what is going to be the catalyst for it? Because we already talked about we have no major economic news on deck for tomorrow. Then we come over and look at the 4-hour chart. Not a whole lot to see here. You see that large gap that was left behind from today. Really, other than that, nothing else to see. On the 30-minute chart, look at the MACD indicator just about to cross over to the downside. And then we have that large gaping gap down below us. Now, even though the profile shape may look like a D as in dog shape profile, I'm actually going to classify it as a P as in Paul. And you might say, Mike, well, this gap that we have in the market, this gap, I'm going to include this as part of the profile because that's going to be from the close on Friday all the way into all of today's price action. Now, the rule behind this is with the P-shaped profile, we start trading below value area low, highly probable we're going to retrace to the lower third of the range. Well, the first target would be down here towards gap support, 605.98. And then we'll see, can we make it right here to about 604.31, kind of right up here towards these candle wicks. Then we'll look to see, can we come all the way down, potentially fill in that gap. Now, we come over and look at the NASDAQ futures real quick. I want you guys to pay very close attention. One, notice we are well above value area high from the prior week. But then two, look at the prior all-time high and look at where we're at right now. If the market starts to turn down from here, this is a clear warning sign. As we are able to break the all-time highs, notice we did not get a flood of buyers stepping in, really rocketing the market on the way up. Now, look at value area high all the way down here at 25,029. Keep in mind, I warned about this in this weekend's video the fact that we have 2 consecutive untested pointed controls. And I do think at some point this week, we will make it down to 24,828.75. Then as we come over and look at the daily profiles on the 30-minute chart, notice what we had today. We're able to break above all-time highs, and then notice we are able to close back below all-time highs. So again, could this be nothing more than a look above failure? Now, unlike the S&P 500, we do not have an inside day. Today's high was a new all-time high in the NASDAQ. So as I'm looking at this, notice this highlighted area. This was a minus development area, and this is one of the areas I targeted today. Right here on the live stream, we played right down towards this area. First touch, what do we expect? The market to reject out. Second touch, the market rejected back out once again. But as I'm looking at this pattern, I also want to look at this as a potential double top pattern, even though the second high is a little bit higher. Now, if we want to go ahead and map this out, just in case this pattern does play out, keep in mind that the validation point would be 25,108. If we start breaking below that price point, then it opens the door to 24,962.66. And since we deal in quarter point increments, we want to round that up to 962.75. We breached that. We're going all the way back down towards the lows on Friday. And then below that, we really want to focus over here off the weekly volume profile levels. Now, in the event that we come down and we start breaking below value area low from today, 25,131 and a quarter, and we start coming back up, at that point, I wouldn't want to use the point of control as target number 1. Instead, I want to use this area of the distribution as target number 1, somewhere around 25,160. Then I'd want to use the point of control, then value area high, and then all-time highs in this market. Now, if you guys would like to see if Take Profit Trader is still the number 1 prop firm out there, then you want to make sure you watch this next video right here.